everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to What's Growing On. And today we are going to be talking about starting from scraps. So this is going to be really fun. And Tarrant has made some videos, some how-to videos to show you. So I'm really excited about that. So we're going to show you those today. And this is kind of our first time with this new kind of technology showing videos and stuff. So if it's a little glitchy, just bear with us. We'll figure it out. But good morning, Tarrant. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good too. So my first time making these kind of videos as well. So I hope everybody enjoys them. And I think we're just going to get better and better at it, aren't we, Dorothy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's there's always a learning curve, but I think you did a great job. So thank you for that. So we're going to start with talking about onions. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the first one on the list. One of the easiest to regrow, and one of my favorites.
Awesome. So I'm going to start that video now, and here we go.
Off with one of my favorite kitchen scraps to regrow, and that is the green onion. They are very easy to regrow, and that's why it's one of my favorites, and it's also something that we eat a lot in our household and cook with. So basically, you just chop off what it is that you're going to cook with or eat with dinner. You can chop as much as you'd like. If you're like me, you love this white part because it has a really good, strong onion taste. But the most important aspect is the little roots that are at the end, because that is what you're going to replant to regrow your green onions. I typically cut them off at the very, very end, so it doesn't take but a very small piece. Again, as long as you have those roots. You're just going to take that and you're going to put it directly into your soil. If you're using a longer stem like this and you want this part to get thicker, with those roots, you're just going to bury it as deep as you can get it below the soil. You're going to cover it with a little bit of potting soil. Get it nice in there in the dirt. Give it a good water so it'll establish and begin its rooting process. Continue to keep it watered over the next few days, and you'll begin to eventually see some sprouts. And then within a few weeks, you'll start to have something like this. So this is my little sprout container where I throw my scraps in, and you have two choices. You can cut the greens off if you're not particular about the white, or you can pull the entire green onion up again and start the entire process over again. But this is an easy way to have a continuous supply of green onions.
Great video.
Thanks. So yeah, and I typically we have green onions probably couple of times a week, either in a salad or on the side with dinner. And so I almost don't ever have to buy them anymore, just because of regrowing them. And even if your tips dry out a little bit, you can still stick them right in the dirt and water them in real well. Sunlight and keeping them watered, and they don't take long to regrow. And actually, we transplanted some into my garden. I think I sent you a couple of pictures of So on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, those are my green onions. And the pictures don't really do them too much justice, but they're probably the diameter around of maybe a romaine lettuce stalk, especially at the bottom. They're pretty big, and they're probably about 3.5 foot tall. So and we just continue just to cut them, and they just keep regrowing and regrowing, and they've done fantastic in the garden. That middle picture is leeks, and so leeks are kind of typically the same way as the green onions. You can do the exact same thing with them as well. Some people say to soak them in water first before you transplant them to the garden, but I've never done that with onions or leeks or anything like that. I just stick them straight in the dirt or straight in my garden, straight in the little pot, and they just typically take off.
Awesome. That's so easy. And those are huge green onions. I didn't know they could even get that big. That's great.
They're county fair prize winners, I believe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we have another video, and this one is going to be about garlic. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's add that one, and here we go.
The process of regrowing garlic is very, very simple. You're just going to break off a clove of garlic. You can do as many as you want. You can just do one. So you've got two ends. You've got this really hard end, which is where the original root was, and then you've got this little tip here, which is where your new sprout is going to come out. And so it's very simple. All you need to do is put that old root end down with this new part at the top. You're just going to push it down, get it down in there, give it a good cover of some good soil. Then you're going to water it in like we do all of our other plantings. You're going to keep it watered and in the sun. And as you have new sprouts come up, you want to trim those back just a little bit. The only thing with garlic is that the process is typically about 6 months until you have a clove of garlic, but well worth the wait.
Awesome. I was going to ask, how long does it take? So 6 months.
Yeah, it takes a good bit for them to grow. And of course, the way you know if they're ready, because they can take less or they can take a little longer depending on, temperatures and things like that. But when the bottom leaves begin to start to turn yellow and brown, typically that's when your garlic your bulb is ready, and then you can pull those out of the ground.
Okay, that's great to know. So when your bottom leaves start to get brown.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, awesome. And and I may have missed it, but did you mention how long it takes the onions to grow? Like how long before you see little sprouts of onions?
With the onions, I mean, you see sprouts within a week or two. I mean, it doesn't
Nice.
take them long to grow. I mean, I guess on average, maybe a month or so, and then you've got a pretty decent sized green onion. So it doesn't take long at all for green onions. They're a very quick grower.
Awesome. Awesome. That's great. Okay, so next we're going to be talking about, is it lettuces and bok choy and celery and herbs?
Yep.
Let's see, we've got a picture here. So tell us a little bit about these, Tarrant.
Yeah, so pretty much any of your kind of leafy greens, and then also celery and herbs can be regenerated and regrown from your scraps. With them, though, you do have to put them in water. And if you notice the picture of the lettuces, the water is just enough to where the bottom part of the stem of the plant can get water, and you just kind of keep it like that in a sunny spot. The growth will start to happen at the top and it'll start to regrow. And then eventually you'll have roots that will come out the bottom in the water. So when you get those roots on any of those, that's when you take it and you can stick it directly into your garden or into your planters. Herbs, you do those basically the same way as well. They'll eventually sprout roots, the same as celery. But as you can see, they will start to do the growth on top before, typically before the roots come out. But once those roots come, you can transfer it to the garden and let it complete its growing process. And then again, the thing that is so cool about all of this is that these plants, when you do this and then you harvest them again, you can start the whole process over again, and you can almost have an endless supply.
That's so cool. Awesome. Yeah, I love that. I love the and that's fun, especially if you have little kids, the celery and the lettuce, rooting it in water so they can watch it. So that's what's really exciting about that. Awesome. Well, great. So next we have another video, and this is about potatoes, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let me get that one started.
So potatoes, if you're like me, a lot of times you'll buy a big bag of potatoes, and before you know it and get to the end of it, they have started to sprout. So right there is your way to regrow your own potatoes. So all you're going to do is just slice that piece off. If it's a smaller potato, like a golf ball size, you don't even necessarily have to do that, but that is the most important factor right there. So with potatoes, you do need a large growing space to get the size that you would want typically out of a large potato. But if you want smaller potatoes, the smaller the space, the smaller the potato. But basically in your garden or in a large pot, this is just for demonstration purposes, because obviously this is not big enough a pot to grow potatoes. But you're just going to take this slice right here with the eye that they call it. You're just going to place it about 6 to 8 inches deep into your pot, and then you're just going to completely cover it. You're going to water it in very well just to get it established in its new home, and continue to keep it watered on a regular basis, just to make sure that it has everything it needs to grow. Eventually you're going to start to see sprouts. One thing about potatoes is a lot of times you can continue to cover the leaves and continue to cover and kind of mound them, because they kind of are a mounding vegetable. But you can definitely regrow potatoes, and it's another one of my favorites because we eat a lot of potatoes in our household. Sweet potatoes you also can regrow, but they have a little bit of different process, and we're going to show you that next.
Awesome. So how long does it take before you can eat your potatoes you grow?
It's a few months. It's
months.
definitely a few months,
Okay.
and they will start to vine. And the same thing, and this goes for sweet potatoes as well. When the leaves start to kind of wilt and turn brown, that's typically because they're underground, so you don't know, like with others, you can't visibly see them of whether or not they're ready. But around 3 months, 3 to 4 months is kind of an average time. But potatoes, they do need a lot of space. Like I said, that pot was obviously not big enough to grow potatoes. So you're going to either want to do those in a very, very deep container. Storage containers, we kind of showed those on a previous episode, that those are really good for growing in a garden. And you could actually, those would be perfect for a small crop of potatoes, or just directly in your garden, but make sure that they have plenty of space. But I think we have an image of the sweet potato.
We do. Go.
Okay. So, so the sweet potatoes, they last forever. So typically they are eaten before they start to sprout their own eyes. At least I know for me. On the other side, that's an avocado. You can do the avocados the same way. My understanding from all my research is that you need 2 avocado plants because they need to cross-pollinate each other for you to actually bear fruit with avocados. But anyway, that same process of how you would root an avocado from seed, you would do the same thing with the potato, and just use kind of like the little toothpicks to kind of create a platform and make sure part of the potato is sitting down in the water, and eventually it'll sprout a root. And once it sprouts that root, you can do the same thing and plant it in your garden or in your container.
Okay, that is so cool. So you do the same thing with sweet potatoes that you do with avocados. Okay, so
now I was going to say, if you do have sweet potatoes that have already developed eyes on them, then you can skip that water process and do just like we did with the regular russet potato and just cut that eye off, and make sure that the eye is facing up and not down. But yeah, so if it's already got an eye on it or a little root coming out, then you can, skip the water process.
Okay, great. Good to know. So one thing I wanted to ask, is there any particular time of year that we should think about planting these, or that they've got their season? Is there anything like that with these?
So potatoes are a summer into harvest, early fall, late summer. And as far as green onions, I mean, I grow those year round.
Okay.
Garlic prefers a little bit cooler weather, but it takes so long. You can actually start the process like midsummer, and then by fall, you may start to have your garlic. So there are different, planting seasons for everything, but the green onions, I do those year round, and they survive they survive freeze, at least, the freezes that we've had.
Hmm.
And we did have one that was several days hard freeze in the low 20s, and they didn't blink at all.
That's
They were
awesome.
still flourishing. So I say green onions are year round.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's great. That's good to know. All right. So next up, let's see what we have next. We have mushrooms. So we're going to have our video clip of mushrooms. So here we go.
The process of regrowing garlic is very, very simple.
Oh,
You're just going to break off a
oopsies. That was my fault. Let me, the garlic and the mushroom one looked very similar. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Let's try that again, shall we? That's
really
gonna,
fun
here we go.
thing to regrow. It's a little bit different of a process because as opposed to having lots of sun, mushrooms like it dark and warm and moist. And so all you're going to do is just pop that top off right there. And then you've got that great mushroom you can eat later on. And you're just going to take this, you're going to put it down in your dirt. But the one thing that you're going to do that's a little bit different than what we've done with our others is you're going to make sure that the top remains a little bit exposed. You're going to water it in just like we do all of the rest, and then you're going to put it in a nice warm humid type environment, dark environment, and you'll eventually, if the cutting takes, which sometimes we all know that we've got to try again to be successful, but if the cutting takes, then you'll start to see new sprouts and mushrooms, and you can actually continue to repeat the process over and over again and have a continuous supply of mushrooms.
Awesome. Let me take this out real quick. There we go. So that's really cool about mushrooms. It's much better than just going out in your yard and trying to randomly pick them.
Yes, and I would not suggest
Right.
that you do that.
Right.
Because unless you are an expert or you have an expert, because lots of mushrooms that are poisonous resemble edible mushrooms. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. But
Right.
if you're growing your own and you got them from a reliable source, then I would think they were safe to go pick in your garden. But the only thing about the mushrooms is that they want a dark space, and so mushrooms, and I mentioned garden mushrooms. You're not growing them outdoors in the sunlight. If you've got a dark shed or something like that you can grow them in, because they're a fungus essentially, and they like it wet, and they like it dark, and they like it warm. So, but I thought that one was pretty cool too. I didn't realize that you could just regrow mushrooms from a stem. So when I was doing some of my research to kind of find out if there were other things that were interesting that you could regrow from scraps, that was something that I was surprised about. So
that's really exciting. Yeah, that is really exciting. I might have to try that one too. So these are going to be so much fun to do with my kids. So especially this summer. So we've got to find something to do. So that's great. That's really interesting. All right. So next we're going to be talking about some of the more common things I think people think about are tomatoes and peppers and how you grow these guys.
So this is an image of some tomato seeds. So basically the way I do it is after we're finished with a tomato or even with our peppers, we pull out the seeds and I'll stick them on just a plate to dry out. And then once they dry out, I usually just use a spoon and just kind of scrape them off of the plate. You can then store them if it's not within season, like in I use a mason jar, just because it's kind of an airtight container, because you want them to be airtight. You don't want humidity or anything to get to your seeds. And so, or you can take them and put them directly in the garden. So it's very.
Uh-oh, looks like Tarrant froze up. Let's see if we can get her back in here. Let's see. Tarrant, you there?
Easy to. What's
you
that,
there?
Dorothy?
Hey, sorry, you froze up for a second. You froze up for a second. You're back. Yay! So so you were talking about mason jar, airtight, and then we lost you.
Oh, okay. Just if you want to store the seeds, if it's if it's in season, you can take those seeds and put them directly in your garden. Another really cool, neat trick. Now you're going to end up with lots and lots of tomato sprouts. But say you've got a tomato that is going bad, and instead of throwing it away, slice it in just kind of like maybe 1/2 inch, 1 inch thick slices. Take that slice and put it directly in your pot. Give a light cover of soil over the top of it, water it in really good, and all of those seeds that are in that tomato slice will sprout, and then you'll have an abundance of tomato plants, and you can thin them out and take them and transplant them to your garden, or thin them out and make several pots of them. But yeah, that's an easy way too. So if you don't want to go through the process of drying out your seeds and doing all that, if you're ready just to grow those plants, you can just put the slice directly in the dirt.
That is so cool. That is so cool. And that's easy peasy. Can you do that with peppers too? Just kind of slice the pepper, and are they?
You know, I've not before. You probably could. I don't see why you couldn't.
That's so cool.
Tomato slice would be a really fun thing to do with kids too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, so next we've got the Southern favorite, okra. So this was really interesting. This picture, the picture on the right here, I had never seen something like that before. So that's pretty cool. So tell us about okra.
Yeah, so this is a okra pod that I saved. So instead of picking the okra, I just let the pod stay on the plant. It was the end of the season, and eventually they dry out, and you can just pop them off. And so inside of that okra pod, and this is actually what they call Alabama red okra.
Okay.
It's a real pretty, the taste is not really different. I don't notice a difference, but it's just a short, fatter kind of okra pod, and it's got this really pretty kind of deep red tone to it. But so basically, you can pop that pod off at the end of the season, and then there's probably, I would say, 50 plus seeds in the one pod. So you'd only have to really save one pod, and you'd have enough seeds to regrow, you know, okra for the next year or the next couple of years, as long as you save them in an airtight container and kind of take care of them. But yeah, I thought that was really cool, that to be able to you know, have a continuous supply of okra, because you really just need one pod and you'll have all the seeds you need.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Now, if you were to buy your okra at the store, could you let one dry out, or does it really need to be started on the vine?
You know, I've never done that. You could try it. You definitely could try it. I don't see where the difference really would be. But you know, because eventually it is going to dry out. But it would be a little experiment to see if that would work.
Sure. So awesome. Okay, great. That's really exciting. And just one pod, you'll have like over 50 seeds. That's so cool. And then next, I think you wanted to talk about one of your favorite things to grow. And I think this is really cool, but pineapple.
Yeah, so these are 3 of my pineapple plants. One is actually, I have a front flower bed, and it's just a really pretty green plant. Needs lots and lots of room. The one in the middle is where we put a pineapple top, and it's sitting kind of in a bowl in a little bit of water, which we don't do that. We usually just stick it straight in the dirt, and it has grown both ways. The other one, and it looks kind of dried out because the freeze got it a little bit, but yeah, you can basically, if you get a pineapple and you slice that top off, you can put that top directly in the dirt, and then it'll eventually grow a new pineapple. They are like garlic, though. They take forever. I think the one that we had in our front flower bed took about 1.5 years to produce a pineapple. So it is a process, but they're very pretty the whole time that they're growing. So they're just big and green, and they've got those real long spiky leaves. And so, but that one is another one that's really fun to grow. It's a process. So you want to put it in a spot in your garden where you're not going to need that space for a bit.
Does it need to be in a sunny spot?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And this is, we're down south, so it's a great place to grow pineapple. Kind of that tropical feel. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I'm so excited about that. I am ready to try all of this with my kids. So, thanks so much, Tarrant. We really appreciate it. It doesn't look like we have too many questions in the comments today because I think those videos did a great job of kind of explaining things. So that's awesome. And yeah. And if you have tried something else, at home from from your kitchen scraps, let us know. We'd love to hear from you and what your experience is. And you can always email Tarrant at victoryteachingfarm.org. It's T-Lanier at victoryteachingfarm.org. So you can always email your questions to her. You can always email your anecdotes, your gardening stories. Tell us some of what your tried and true tips are. We'd love to hear them. And, this is so much fun. I'm so excited about the videos now, Tarrant. This is opening up a whole new world for us. So folks, thanks for joining us today. Tarrant, thanks so much for these tips. This has been a lot of fun today. I've been really excited about this.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Yeah, thank you. All right, folks. So we're going to show you our events video for the week, and we will see you not next Monday, the Monday after. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. So we'll see you then on What's Growing On. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.